good morning, Beverly.
Well, good morning, Jody.
So nice that you left your lovely office called the Archives of the Adrian Dominican Sisters to be here today. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
So be sure to put this in the archival notes, please. Beverly Bobola, and your religious name was?
Sister Andrew Bobola, and then I had to add my family name, so I was Sister Andrew Bobola Bobola.
How did you ever come up with the religious name Andrew Bobola?
Well, my grandparents, my paternal grandparents, lived in Nanticoke, Pennsylvania. And I think at the time I was 9 years old and the family went to visit. And on the bureau, I saw this little holy card in glass in a frame that said St. Andrew Bobola, but I think it was in Polish, if I recall. Mm-hmm. And when we got home, I went to the parish calendar, and there he was, a picture of him, and on May 21st, St. Andrew Bobola. I was just ecstatic to think we had a saint in our family.
That you were a relative.
Yes.
Somewhere down the line.
Yes.
Yes. So easily, Mother Gerald said, of course.
Well, that's a story. When I came with the book of St. Andrew Bobola. And when I went to meet her, I said, this is the name that I would like to take. And she looked at it and had never heard of him. But I said that his body was still in Warsaw, encased under the main altar. And so she just looked at it and nodded at me. And so...
And that's what happened?
And that's what happened.
Oh, my. Did the children that you taught, grade school, high school, college, did they ever have a problem with saying that name? No, they
didn't. It all came out, Sister Andrew Bobola. They never shortened it, or, yes. Yeah. Only they didn't know that.
Yes, yeah. No, we didn't know last names at that time. Well, when did the prick come, or the nudge come about becoming a sister?
Well, I attended St. Lawrence School in Utica, Michigan. And in second grade, we had, there was a ritual in the parish. Every year they had a procession on the Feast of Christ the King, which is the last Sunday before Advent. And Sister told us to write something. We were given a piece of paper. And she said, write what you would like to be, or something special, because it will be carried in a basket and put at the foot of the statue of Christ the King. So there we were on Friday. I can still remember turning around to see the youngster carrying the basket, and then the 8th grade boy who was going to place the crown on Christ the King. And I recall thinking, my intention is in that basket.
Oh, my.
And that was it.
And your intention at that time was?
To become an Adrian Dominican sister.
Specifically Adrian?
Yes, yes.
Oh, my.
Because in second grade or third grade, I had Sister Frances Michael. And she was the epitome of joyfulness. Oh. She had this beautiful smile, and I was just... taken up with the smile. Now, the other sisters were joyful too, but she just seemed to radiate joyfulness, in grade school. And
so how old were you when you entered then?
I went to Siena for 1 year. I wanted the experience of college. So I went 1 year, and I was actually 18. I turned 19 in August. Mm-hmm.
And did a sister at Siena help you or walk you over to from one side of the campus to the other?
No. During that year at Siena, we had a talk on vocations. It was between semesters, they used to have a retreat for the students. And Father said at that point, if you feel God is calling you, you set a date. You just don't say, God's calling me, God's calling me. Set a date, and that's it, he said. So I recall going back to my room, I was crying because I thought, oh, this is it. I have to set a date. So I went to see Sister Alice Joseph, who was around the corner. Mm-hmm. And it was after 10, not realizing she would have to, put on the habit. She was in bed, and so there she was with her cloak and the headgear and veil, and so she said, now when you go home to St. Lawrence, Utica, you tell Father de Kaiser, he was not a Monsignor as yet, and you tell your parents. But she said, February is too soon. She said, you will enter in June. She's telling me, you will enter in June, so you'll have time to get everything ready. Oh. So when I went home, I'm crying and I'm telling my mother. And then she said, well, you have to tell your father. So as I was leaving, someone was picking us up to go back to Siena. I told my father, and he said, more power to you.
Oh my, how beautiful. So Sister Alice Joseph walked you over?
No. It was Sister Raphael from Utica, Sister Raphael McDonald, who I had as a junior and senior, and we kept in contact. And so I had told her, also when I came in for that weekend, and she also said, February's too soon. You wait till June.
What was your plan when you were at Siena to what were you going to focus on in your studies?
Education.
Yes. And you did use that
I
throughout.
did, yes. English and education.
Where in Michigan did you ever use your gifts of teaching?
I started out in Jackson, Michigan, teaching the little ones. And then I went to, Jackson, and then Sacred Heart in Hudson. And then I went to St. Norbert's in Inkster.
Oh my.
And that was interesting because the first year I taught grade 5. And then the school district wanted us to join them because we didn't have enough room for all the students. There were 3 of each grade. And so
that was in the Cherry Hill area of
That's right, Cherry Hill
Detroit.
School District. And so the 8th graders came to us in the morning, and the 7th graders went to Cherry Hill, or to John Hill, to the junior high. And then they switched, and the 7th graders came to us in the afternoon, and the 8th graders went to Cherry Hill. So we each taught 8 classes a day, 8 45-minute classes.
Oh my.
Yes, but it was...
Who was the superior at the time you were there?
Sister Mercida.
Yes. Didn't she have another sister, a sister in the congregation?
She did, yes. And that was the first 3 years. And then it went into the high school, Sharetime High School. Oh. And at that time, Sister Barbara Mary came as the high school
wonderful.
principal.
Yes. Now, when you talk about your father, what was his profession, Beverly?
My dad was a meat distributor, yes, for many years. He'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning because we lived in Utica, far from Detroit. And he would drive to Detroit to get the meat and then distribute it, retail.
And how many brothers and sisters do you?
Well, there were 5 of us. I'm the oldest. There were 3 girls and 2 boys.
Wonderful. Yeah. It is so close to them, I'm sure.
Yes.
Now, when I first met you, you were in Henderson, Nevada. So that's a long way from St. Norbert's and Utica. But you weren't teaching then. So when did you switch?
I switched. I was ministering in West Palm Beach and for the chapter office. I was the secretary for the chapter office. And then I knew that I needed to do something else. And so I studied chaplaincy, CPA, in West Palm and also in Orlando. And I was there for a whole year. That was a blessing, just to be an intern for the whole year.
Wow.
And I was the only woman with 5 men, studying chaplaincy. So that was unique in itself.
Indeed.
Yes, that was just a beautiful year. I truly loved that year.
But hadn't you spent some time at Berry?
I did, yes. Prior to that.
That
was in the 70s.
So that was before Henderson.
Yes. I taught office administration and business education.
At Berry.
At Berry. Students who wanted to become executive secretaries, and then students who wanted to teach business in high school.
I bet that was a great experience.
That was great. I took them on field trips. We went to big companies like Eastern Airlines, accountant firms.
For what purpose?
So that they could see. Many of these students were from the islands, or from South America. So I wanted them to have the experience of seeing how an office operates. That's right, and how people dress, for their positions. And
were there computers at that time?
No, they're just electric typewriters. And at Barry, we only had 5 electric typewriters and 15 manual typewriters. So the students would rotate, and so they'd all have the experience of an electric typewriter. And the students from the island said, we could never have electric typewriters. We don't have all the power that you would need, and the repairmen.
Well, who would repair them?
That's right.
Right. Oh, my. So it was a big move for you when you decided to go in study chaplaincy, correct?
It was. But I must say that during my teaching years, whenever a student had a family member that was in the hospital, a mother, a dad, it just came natural for me to say, where is the parent or the cousin? And I would go visit them. Yes, and so it just came naturally.
So did you go get on the train and head for Las Vegas?
No, actually I drove. My
drove.
Sister-in-law Bonnie drove with me, and I took plants that I brought from Henderson. No, excuse me. I had plants, and I brought them from West Palm Beach. I had them in the car. Some of them were tall.
Yeah.
And she drove with me from Michigan to Henderson, and she always teases that I talk to the plants on the way more than I talk to her. But
did you live on Church Street?
I did, yes,
My.
39 Church Street.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
And I would imagine Sister Michael Thomas Wilson was there at the time you were.
Oh, yes.
No, both she and...
She was at the other end of the street.
And Janet Scholl are here on
right.
campus now.
That's right, yeah. And Sister Vicki D'Alessandro and Sister Molly Nicholson. Yes.
And which hospital? Did you serve at St. Rose?
I served at St. Rose, which was the main campus at the time, and Siena campus was being built. So that opened in 2000. So then we rotated back and forth. The chaplains did.
Oh, my. Were you lured to the strip?
Not really, but I will say this. I never played a nickel. I never did. My brother and sister-in-law came to visit, and he had a roll of nickels. And he said, no, it's not your money, so you don't have to worry, But I disappointed him because I didn't play a nickel. But I did give tours. I did give tours.
Yes. And I was in one of your tours that I was very grateful for. Yeah.
But whenever any sister came to visit, I tried to take them, if I could, or lead them to the Bellagio, because that's a beautiful flower setting. The foliage is just wonderful for all the seasons of the year.
And the artwork.
Oh, the artwork.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, that's beautiful.
And then from there, all of a sudden, you're in Canada.
That's right. Donna Markham sent a letter, and she said, she's having this meeting, and if anyone might be interested, there were 3 areas in Canada, 2 in Canada, I think 1 in Alaska, that she promised bishops she would send if she could. And as much as I loved Henderson, I loved St. Rose, I just felt called to that meeting. I thought, well, nothing can hurt, go to the meeting. And then at the end of the day, she said, I want you to choose, if you'll be on the train, if you'll be standing by the train waving goodbye, or if you'll be on the platform, see you in maybe a couple of years. Well, I just felt I was going to be on the train.
Oh, wow. Did you visit the area before you made your final decision?
We did, yes, we did. We went up for just a couple days, 2 or 3 days, and were met by the bishop.
I recall he was a dream bishop.
Yes, Father Jerry the bishop, excuse me, Bishop Jerry Wiesner. I couldn't believe he was there at the airport to meet us, but he was.
Did he ask for specific sisters who had a specific...
He did. He did. He asked for pastoral ministry. He asked for counseling. There were several things that he was interested in, but he wanted the sisters. That was the most important. He wanted the sisters. And everyone was gracious to us the couple days that we were there. And so within a couple months, we were there.
Did you all go back?
We did.
Yes.
Yeah, we did.
And that was it Sister Jude?
No, Sister Jude came when we were there 2 years. Yes, she came afterwards. But it was Sister Jean Marie Leitonen, and myself, and Sister Terry Ann.
So just the three of you.
Yes.
How did you survive winters after Las Vegas?
I don't think any of us thought about the winter. We got boots and we got shawls, and it was cold. I have to say that. There were nights when we had to plug in the cars. The battery had to be plugged in. And the snow was unbelievable. I mean, they would be working on the roads all night, just all night.
And did the bishop provide housing for you?
He did. He provided housing and a vehicle for each of us.
Oh, my.
So that was wonderful.
He probably felt he hit the jackpot.
Well, Bishop Wiesner is an OMI, Oblate of Mary Immaculate. And it was just being in community when we were with him. It was wonderful. And there were several other OMIs that were in the Prince George area, and we got to meet all of them.
And what was your specific ministry while you were there?
I was the Catholic chaplain in the hospital, and I visited the patients every day, the Catholic patients and also the non-Catholic patients, and where else I was called in the hospital.
Did you ever have any First Nation patients?
Oh, yes, there were many First Nation patients, yes. And they always appreciated a visit, or appreciated receiving Holy Communion. I visited some of them at home when they were dying on the reservation, which was a couple of hours from Prince George. 2-lane highways. There are no 4-lane highways in British Columbia, just 2-lane highways. And
well, that was a beautiful experience.
It was. They were very appreciative. And
the other sisters probably worked with First Nation.
I think, yes, they did. Yes. In counseling, I'm not sure how frequent that was, but I know in other ministries they did.
I recall hearing that you had or staffed or volunteered at a store downtown. I think it had been a store, but now it housed the poor.
It was a daycare center, not a daycare, but any street people who wanted to come between 10 and 2. I was not involved with that. Sister Jean Marie Leitonen was involved with that. But they came, and she provided outings for them, and like tea and coffee and counseling. So it was a place for them to come. It was very nice.
So how did you end up as director of the Archives for the Adrian Dominican Sisters? I mean, I just think of that circle you
Yes, and
you
the
have
varied
made.
ministries. I mean, God has really blessed me.
Yes.
I came home one day, and there was a letter from Sister Rose Celeste. And
While you were in British Columbia?
I was in British Columbia, yes. I was in Prince George, and I came in, and I read the letter aloud. And Sister Jean Marie said, "Oh, have you always wanted to be an archivist?" And I said, "On the contrary."
That wasn't on your list?
No. And
had you ever taken one of those surveys about what you might be doing in your life in the future?
Yes. I remember that in high school, and I remember taking one at Siena. And I have to tell you, research was at the bottom. I mean, librarian was at the bottom. And I just read this, and thought, oh my heavens, what is God calling me to? But the congregation called, and several times in my life the congregation has called, and I've accepted. When I went to Rosary, Rosary High School, the congregation had called. When I went to Barry, it was a call from the congregation. I was a secretary to Attracta and Donna, and the congregation had called,
I thought so. Yeah.
Yes, for Attracta 4 years, and for Donna Markham 1 year. And it was like, the congregation is calling. And this may not be my first choice or second choice, but God has equipped me with the talent to do this.
You must have a gift of organization.
Well, I think I do to a certain extent, but detail is very important, detail. And part of the job or the ministry is to do a photo board when a sister dies. Now that is a blessing, in that I call upon that deceased sister and say, now lead me to the photos that will depict your life, that others, will be inspired. And sometimes it's a challenge because they don't have many photos in their personal file. But I'm happy to do that. That's very
what a joy.
Good. That is.
It's a rather sacred ministry, I would
It
think.
is.
Yeah.
It is. And we receive requests from people who are doing their genealogy and asking for information about their grand-aunt, their great-great-aunt, and wanting to know as much as they can about that person. And I'm happy to be able to send them, most of the time, a photo. Not always, because we didn't always take photos in the early 90s, 1900s. And a homily from the Mass, if it's in their folder, and their life story. And people are thrilled. Oh, the recipients are just thrilled.
What has surprised you most when you started that, embraced that position? What have you found that you have said, this is amazing that we have this here?
All the information that we have about our schools, each house used to keep annals until 1970. We had house annals. And all the information that is contained in those annals, they have helped us many times when we're searching for something, or maybe a sister is recorded as being in one place, but we can't find her in that place. And so we check the annals that the house has kept, and that will tell us, was she in the hospital? Sometimes she has died, and that wasn't recorded someplace that it should have been, or something like that. So all the information that is contained in those annals, it's just wonderful to be able to find it.
Do you have one room just for the prioresses of the congregation?
We actually have 3 floors of the vault, and that is divided. The artifacts are in the lower level, and that's where the prioresses of the congregation's artifacts would be. But
they're Emmys and Oscars, right?
Yes, right. The level that's on top, the second floor level, contains all the information, all of their files, and all the sisters' files, but the deceased files are in the middle level. So each level contains certain documents and files, yes.
And that structure is fireproof, waterproof.
Yes, it is.
And airproof,
temperature controlled.
Temperature controlled.
Yes.
And do you have to say sesame open? You have to have a blood test to get into the archive?
No, we have a key.
Yeah. You have a key.
We have a key that opens it up. And we also have a little dumbwaiter. So if I need files, from the lower level boxes, I can just put them on the dumbwaiter and it goes up.
It's like a little pulley, is that right?
Well, it's electronic.
It's electronic.
Yes, and it goes up.
Well, it's more than a dumbwaiter.
But it's very helpful because the boxes get heavy, the file boxes.
Yes. Is there someone who does the checking to make sure every one of our sisters has her autobiography written?
There is. That's the history department, I believe. They do
okay.
that.
You don't?
No.
Well, you count your blessings on that one. Yeah.
Yes. I try to urge sisters when I see them to bring their photos, you know.
Yes. Because why hold on to them at
Exactly.
this point? So sisters, please, what?
Send in your photos, labeled.
Label. And with
Labeled.
the year, if possible.
That's right,
Yes.
yes. That is good.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for saying yes to the congregation.
Oh, you're most welcome.
And besides the wonderful work you do there, your presence on campus is a blessing, Beverly.
Well, thank you,
Yes.
Jody. Thank you.
Even though it's not the first time.